All right, well, welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors. Today we're going to talk about this kind of administrative pouch. These are just some tools that I carry with me that help with all sorts of different types of things, namely sending messages and navigation. And so a lot of what I talk about, a lot of what I do personally is I work on things in and related with radio communications. I talk a little bit about this, or quite a bit about this on our blog, both the blog on our web store and our Patreon. So if you're interested in some of these things and communicating with radio communications, check that stuff out. If you're interested in this subject, we have a very big and detailed book on radio communications as well. So called the Guerrilla Radio, an Urban Guide to Conflict Communications, and we kind of delve into all sorts of stuff. And one of the things that we talk about in the book is the relationship of radios with navigation and maps, and also radios with codes and ciphers. Today, this little kit here we're going to talk about is some of the things that it's going to help you with some of these things in these tasks in those two areas. So the kit is just a simple, EDC organizer, I guess you'd call it, similar to what Maxpedition had out, a few years ago. Nothing fancy. Doesn't have to be this. Nothing in this video has to be replicated. You can have your own stuff, obviously, and your own organizer. You might find better things, and please do share in your comments if you do have other options. So right at the front here, I just keep a couple of my contact paper note cards. Note cards are super handy to have all the time. Having a few in your back pocket or a notebook that you can jot things down. I did a whole video on these specifically, so I won't talk too much about it, other than that I just put contact paper on top of the note cards. That way I can take a pencil and write out on a message and very easily erase it. I can use dry erase markers. I can do all sorts of different types of things, and I can just erase that easily. And it's a kind of a nice waterproofed note-taking system. So if I'm writing something out on a piece of paper that I don't want to keep, or like maybe a signals operation instructions, or something related to something I'm doing on the radio in terms of communications, talking, taking notes, whatever, or in person, I have these note cards that I can grab right away that I can use. So again, if you're interested in this, how to make them, other things you can do with these, check out that post. We talk a lot about that, or we go more in depth on that. Okay, so next up, I'll kind of cover a couple navigation related stuff. I'm a big believer in writing on maps, writing notes on maps, writing all sorts of stuff. So in doing that, I like pencils. I'm just using this mechanical pencil. If you want to go with old school with a wood pencil or a backup wood pencil, that's totally fine and actually recommended, because mechanical pencils run out of their graphite. They can break. They don't have much for an eraser. But that all being said, the 0.5 mechanical pencils for map work, for me, really seems to work well as far as a lead size, whereas the regular pencil's lead, if it's not sharpened appropriately, it's going to be a much fatter, bigger mark on your map. And so I like that consistency of the size of a mechanical pencil for that purpose. The next thing I like to have on my maps, or use on my maps, is a highlighter. I like to mark trails that I'm hiking. I like to mark where I'm going to go so that I can easily follow this. It also is a great way if you're communicating something to somebody about where you're at and what trail they need to follow, say to follow you, or if you're giving them instructions on somewhere to go, you can give them a highlighter. Plus, it's great for note-taking and other uses, just the regular uses of the highlighter. In one of our books on covert entry, we talk about how you can use a highlighter to break into a door that has a keypad on it, for example, too. Now, related to the highlighter is one of these IR pens, or blacklight pens. This is just a glow pen, and basically Whatever you write on it is not visible. Oop, looks like this one's visible. Maybe running out of juice, but then you just take a little light like this and shine it on there, and you get yourself a little message. And that's super handy if you need to send a note in class without someone reading it, right? But more importantly, you could write out a location on a map. You could write a grid square. You could write out coordinates. You could do a whole number of interesting things, passing notes, leaving notes behind, maybe at a particular location, about where you're going to go, where you're headed, kind of where things might be. Here's an escape map, just a tissue map that we did a video on, and you can see highlighting a location on that map as an example. Writing utensils, very important. Again, not just glow-in-the-dark stuff or hidden UV stuff, but stuff that you can actually clearly see. I really like these fine point Sharpies. I like to have a minimum of 2 colors, black and red, and I designate those colors for certain things. So general notes might be black, specific things on a map could be red. So that could be campsites, it could be time, it could be distance, whatever you want to designate. But I like multiple colors. I actually do prefer to carry a 3rd color blue, so that I have different color codes for the different usage of that. Then I just have a regular pen, just for writing. Next up here, sticking with navigation, I talk a lot about the usage of Winson telemeters for navigation. You can use them for radio communications. You can use them for all sorts of different stuff. This guy here is set for my particular latitude. I can use this to help find my longitude and latitude if I needed to do celestial navigation. I could use it for range finding, a whole host of stuff. And also I can use it for navigating and finding my location on a map. So I go into depth on how you can use telemeters with radios. I also go into multiple posts on that. I also have a very long post about how to use, a couple posts on how to use this, and I've done some YouTube videos also on how to range find and those types of things. Related to that is this guy. This is a glow-in-the-dark version of a Winson telemeter, or a MOA mils converter. So if you wanted to convert mils to MOA, vice versa, or range find from those, from mils. So let's say if you're using an optic that has mils on it, you can pull out that optic, say a pair of binoculars or a scope, and then you can quickly range find this without having to do any mathematics in your head. So it's just kind of a quicker way to get range find. So there's a lot of different little things you can do with that. This one's clear, and that's so that you can put a LED light up to it or a chem light, and it'll glow, and you can still take your measurements in a low light condition. There's a Winson telemeter specifically for range finding designed for that function as well that is made. Related to that is, and this is more of a kind of a thing for me, thing that I think is fun is a moon clock. So you can find your time of day based on your moon position with this card. So that's super handy for me, I think, and super fun, because I use my Winson telemeters and my different devices as I'm traveling. I do a lot of traveling for work. So as I'm traveling, to occupy my time, I like to go around cities, make measurements, and kind of mess around with these to kill time. So they're just to keep me busy, but also just keep you fresh. All right, now also relating to navigation is a grid overlay. I really like these small ones. I think this was from Stately Asset Protection. These are super handy to have. They have multiple scales on it for different map scales. And they can be just used for, they're just essential item. The nice thing about these is they're small. Some of the bigger ones tend to crack easier and also are harder to store. So I do kind of like these small ones for that reason. Next up is just a regular notebook. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. This is my Write in the Rain notebook. That is my notebook that has all sorts of trigonometry reminders, equations, heights of objects that I've measured, weather tips, all sorts of things, survival tips, all things related to navigation and the out of doors, and most of it's trigonometry reminders. Just because you don't use math all the time, certain equations or certain things, it's nice to have a refresher. At least you could look at it and then recall back stuff. And so when you're using these Winston telemeters, it's often nice to have that kind of reference. So I have just created that. Also, it has a lot of the functions that I use on my pilot's watch, because I don't use my pilot watch functions all the time, every day, and I might be, sometimes need a little reminder about some of these functions, because there's tons and tons of things you can do with these watches in terms of calculations. So that I also have there, so little tip sheets for myself. All right, next up is some of the code-related things. And so that is this lighter and this pad. Now, in a previous video, we talked about one-time pads and one-time pad creation. I really like the small pads because it's a small piece of paper. And as you can see, this paper is super thin, which I like, because what you want to do is you want to be able to destroy this paper as quick as possible so that you're destroying the key so no one can break your code. You can do that by eating it, but that's not very tasty. You can certainly put it in water and have it dissolve, flush it down a toilet, or you can burn it. And so that's why we have a little lighter. And so you can check out our video on how to do that. I can put that clip in this video, I think, as well, so you can see. But basically, it's an old KGB trick where you can destroy a document, say in a hotel room, without smoke detectors going off. So you can just quickly light your code pad, your one-time pad, and destroy that quickly. Also, just having notebook paper is super handy to have, and oftentimes, people always recommend Write in the Rain pads, and I like them too. I use them for a lot of stuff as well. They're just harder to just quickly destroy. They're more expensive as well. So sometimes just having a regular notepad paper is nice. All right. Moving on, as you can see, there's these little die that are in here. There's a few of them, and they are what are used to make a one-time pad. So you can use these die to make yourself a number sequence. So that's nice to have. Also, we have a video on using regular six-sided die. You can use them. You just have to jump through a little bit more hoops to make it a little bit more secure. I have another tip cards here. This is what that one-time pad looks like when it's done. This is just an example I did for a video. Some instruction manuals for the Winston telemeters. Reminders again, just like what I said before. I have pace cards relating to our navigation component. I did videos also on these, so I won't go too much, but there's just different paces for different situations. Night, zero visibility, flat, paved, rough terrain, steep, and just kind of like a standard pace card. So templates of these are also available online as well. So reach out to me if you're interested in that. And then I also have this tip sheet on how to find your coordinates. Now, I already know how to do this. Why would I carry something like this? Good question. Because not everyone else does. Maybe you need to ask somebody to help find your position, or you need to hand off information. So I find sometimes having graphics available so that people, for especially hard to describe or something that you have to walk somebody through, I think it's super handy to be able to have something like this. So Again, really important things like your exact location or understanding your location that's very important, I think. And so having something like this is handy. Now, finally, the last thing I have are my one-time pad creation cards. These are just sample cards. They're laminated, just cut down into 3x5 sized format. And so what it has is basically is just something that it's a kit that you can use to help make your one-time pad process a little bit faster. So I have some sample pads or one-time pads, kind of look what the end product looks like. This is great for training. This whole kit. I have a conversion table, right? Now, if you're going to have your own conversion table, or like here is our code book, different codes, and we talk about this in the video. You're going to want to have your own codes, your own conversion tables, right? These are just samples, okay? So don't replicate what I have on here. I have an instruction sheet on how to, if you have a 6-sided die, how to make those work, which we did a video on as well, so check that out. I have a little reminder card for Morse code and tap codes as well. So that's something super handy to have. And then just, again, some more training aids for one-time pad construction. So it kind of walks you through how do you set it up. You've made your pad. Now, how do you do that? You have a checkerboard, you have a code book, you have, you're going to be adding and subtracting a modal 10. How do you do that? And so basically these just kind of walk you through that process. And again, they're laminated, so you can write on them if you wanted to, and you can kind of practice out, or you can use these just as if you're trying to train somebody to do this. If you're on the fly, again, remember, you have to be able to communicate, or you might be communicating with someone who might not be as familiar with codes with you as well. So having training aids, having things to assist you is super handy to have on your person when you're in that situation. Obviously, this is not something that you're going to want to have on with you if you're doing something shady, right? That just makes it look like you're doing something shady. So that's not the point of this kit. This is just to keep your stuff together, essentially the things that you might need on a personal level. All right. So I know there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of references to other videos and other posts. The point is that a lot of this stuff is interconnected and related, and different types of objectives are going to require different types of tools, and sometimes having kind of a broad understanding of radio communications, navigation, cryptology. All of these things are very important in terms of, your tradecraft tools that you're going to put in your tradecraft toolbox. Hopefully this video was interesting. If you have any other tips or tricks that you want to add, or tools that you think that might be important, put them down in the comments below. I'd be curious to see what you say. And if you have a hard time finding any of these printouts or need these printouts, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Also, just in closing, the last kind of a last point is that all of our publications, the things that we provide, we go to help support this project, help support getting more content out, higher quality content, which we'd like to be able to do in the future. So all that support really does help this project. That being said, for anyone that is in, financial situation where they cannot afford to get access to more knowledge, more training even, or some of these tools and resources, including our books, we do make them available to people who cannot afford them. So feel free to reach out and just ask and we'll see what we can do to help you out on what you might need. Related to that is that we also do things where we help some training situations and guidance in domestic violence situations. And in those cases, we kind of use some tradecraft skills a lot of stuff that we teach here, and put them into that context. And so all of that material we provide free, so that people who are victims of domestic violence can protect themselves in the process of getting free from an abuser. With that all said, thanks again, like and subscribe, and we really appreciate your participation